Before I begin, I have just been feeling so reflective in this moment, and I wish every one of you could stand up here and see this whole community move together in unison, doing the Kadosh, 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 and watching the whole community rise and fall is just one of the most profoundly beautiful moments of these High Holy Days. I love our Jewish Chicagoland community. It is truly unlike any Jewish community that I have ever been a part. You know, competition between synagogues doesn't really exist here like it does in other places. There is this abundance mentality. There are enough Jews to go around. Listen, if each Jewish organization is true to itself, it's going to attract exactly the right people that it should have. Because of this, we, your Temple Sholem clergy, we know our fellow rabbis around Chicago like nowhere else. We program closely with Anshe Sholem a couple blocks that way, with Anshe Emet a couple blocks that way, with Mishkan, Emmanuel, with Sinai. Our rabbis, we work together. Our teens, they hang out together. I love how much we play in the sandbox together. Over 100 years ago in New York City, there was even a grander dream than what exists right here. In 1880, there were about 50,000 Jews in New York City, most of them German. But just 20 years later, at the turn of the 20th century, there were nearly 1 million Jews. Now, mostly them from Eastern Europe. Rabbi Judah Magnus, who was actually ordained from the same institution that ordained all of your clergy, all of our clergy here, he had recently founded the American Jewish Committee in 1906, which is still going strong today. And then in 1909, he had a big dream. He called for a convention to bring together every single one of the estimated 2,500 Jewish organizations that existed in New York City at the time. He called this dream organization the Kehilah, simply the community. Though in Chicago today we have a few less local Jewish organizations, I think what exists here in the Lakeview area Jewish community is the foundation of such a beautiful, great Kehilah. And as I think about that word Kehilah and how to define and contextualize it, I am brought back to Jewish summer camp. I didn't know that Rabbi Conover was also going to talk about Jewish summer camp last night and talk about a song that brought her back. I am brought back to a camp that both my wife and I grew up at, the Union for Reform Judaism's Camp Coleman in Georgia, a sister camp to our local Osrui. I can remember so clearly being dressed in all white for Shabbat, dancing and jumping to Jewish pop songs. I was always especially drawn to Dan Nichols' song, Kehilah, Kedosha. It feels like yesterday. I was just like jumping around, rocking out to the words. Each one of us must play a part. Each one of us must heed the call. And then as the music grows, the whole camp comes together to scream, Kehilah, Kedosha. We were the coolest. The chorus to this song is a repetition of those words, Kehilah, Kedosha, meaning a holy community. And at Jewish summer camp, being a holy community is at the core of everything we do. We, of course, prayed together as a Kehilah, Kedosha, but we also played basketball as a Kehilah, Kedosha. We treated each other with respect because we were a Kehilah, Kedosha. It was what drove every action and every interaction. The word Kehilah, meaning community, and Kedosha, meaning holy or sacred. This concept of a Kehilah Kedosha is deeply rooted in Jewish tradition and refers to any time a group of people come together to create a meaningful, supportive, and spiritually enriching environment. At its core, it's a community where members actively support one another through celebrating simchas and providing comfort in times of tsuris. With a deep sense of belonging and interconnectedness, spiritual growth is paramount. And of course, the community engages in study and prayer and observance of Jewish rituals, but it's how those distinctly Jewish moments inform the rest of the day, the rest of our lives. That's the critical part. The Kehilah is united by shared values and strives for inclusivity, welcoming diversity within the Jewish community and ensuring that all of its members are valued and respected. Along with that word Kehilah, its synonym kahal has been used for generations in the names of organizations and synagogues for much of Jewish history. Actually, the first synagogue in the United States to adopt Reform Judaism, known as Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim, was established in 1749 and still thriving in Charleston, South Carolina. And even the great Jewish philosopher Baruch Spinoza, who was famously excommunicated from his community in 1656, his synagogue named Kahal Kadosh. So what makes our spiritual home, Temple Sholem, a Kehilah Kedosha? What puts the Kadosh, the holiness, in our Kehilah? We are a Kehilah Kedosha because of our emphasis on diversity, on justice, and on learning from one another. Through Shalem, our embracing racial and ethnic diversity group, we center the voices of Jews of color and multiracial families in our community. And I'm especially proud in this time that we're not an echo chamber. It's echoing a little bit, but not an echo chamber in that way. We are a home to a beautiful spectrum of positions, of political views, of views on Israel. We are a place to have important conversations where everyone can feel like their true selves and trust that they will be heard as such. We are a Kehilah Kedosha because of our emphasis on justice. Did you know Temple Sholem provides over 5,700 meals annually to those who are hungry? And as you all took part in today, we donate over 2 tons of food on Yom Kippur. Our Jewish values drive us to do so. They drive us to support migrants and refugees, advocate for reproductive justice, and fight for and take action on environmental and climate issues. We're a Kehilah Kedosha because of the ways we learn together. We learn with and from each other about Torah and each one of our varied relationships with God. We do these things as a Kehilah in order to continually improve ourselves. And finally, we're a Kehilah Kedosha because of the ways that we care for each other. Chesed, loving kindness, or caring for one another through life's challenging moments. It's one of our most treasured values here at Temple Sholem. We're a community that shows up enthusiastically for one another by checking in with each other, providing meals for those who are suffering from illness or loss. And Judaism's rituals, our holidays, our prayers, they remind us to continually show up for one another, to help us to build this Kehilah Kedosha. Our Mishaberach prayer for healing reminds us to pick up the phone and connect with those who are not at their strongest of times. The Mourner's Kaddish traditionally helps us to identify who's in need of a hug and who needs a meal. And Passover, it encourages us to make sure that anyone who needs a seat at the table for a Seder has one. And life cycle moments like weddings, namings, conversions, these highlight with joy those who are celebrating one of the most meaningful moments of their life. Continuing to grow a Kehilah Kedosha is a multifaceted endeavor that requires dedication and intentionality from every one of us. Our inclusive atmosphere sets the stage for encouraging active participation and leadership, empowering you to contribute your unique talents and perspectives to our growing community. Our thriving Kehilah Kedosha prioritizes intergenerational connections, creating opportunities for wisdom and traditions to be passed down while also embracing new ideas. If we widen our scope past these doors, we recognize that every single one of us is part of an assortment of communities across Chicago and beyond. We're part of neighborhood communities, work colleague communities, sports fan communities, book clubs, music fan clubs, online communities, and communities like around our kids playing Little League. And Rabbi, you say, listen, my bridge club cares for each other. When my parents died, they all showed up at Shiva. Rabbi, my kids' soccer team all showed up for her birthday. Rabbi, my coworkers and I yearly volunteer at Nourishing Hope, organizing donated goods. That is all holiness. Those are moments and beautiful moments of holiness. And these are the most beautiful examples of doing holy work. And while these interest-based or social communities are so very critical to have, I believe they're complementary to our values-based, our holy communities. Our interest-based communities are essential for personal growth and social connection, complementing the holistic support offered by a Kehilah Kedosha. While interest-based communities allow individuals to explore passions and develop skills, a Kehilah Kedosha provides space to explore one's purpose in life, to celebrate shared values, gain spiritual guidance, and connect on a deeper level through intentional conversations. One of the most powerful books on these intentional connections that we make in a Kehilah Kedosha is this year's book called The Amen Effect by Rabbi Sharon Brous. Rabbi Brous's book contends that in today's world of isolation and extremism, our most crucial spiritual endeavor is to reconnect with each other through shared experiences of joy, of sorrow, of solidarity. The guiding text of the Amen Effect comes from Mishnah, a compendium of Jewish law from about 220 CE. It describes a ritual that took place on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. During pilgrimage festivals, hundreds of thousands of Jews would descend upon Jerusalem. They'd enter the Beit HaMikdash, the Temple Mount, and they would turn to the right and center around the perimeter of the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, and then they'd depart. Except for one who, as our text says, mi sha'aro davar, one for whom something has happened, the brokenhearted, the bereaved, the bereft. This person did something different. They would also descend upon Jerusalem. They would go up to the Beit HaMikdash, and they would turn left. They would circle counterclockwise, while everyone else was circling clockwise. And a sacred encounter would happen. The Kehilah of people circling to the right would encounter those circling to the left. And the Mishnah tells us that those circling to the right would look into the eyes of the bereaved person and say, Malach, what happened to you? And they in turn would say, I'm grieving my father. I'm scared because I found a lump. I'm just so worried about my kid. And then the ones circling would offer a blessing of strength. This ritual, so beautiful yet so difficult, because we all know when we are brokenhearted, when we're ill, when we're scared, the last thing we want to do is get out of bed, let alone engage with someone else face to face so profoundly. When seemingly the whole world is walking in one direction and you're walking the other, our tradition guides us that when we are broken, we can't just expect that we're going to simply show up and be able to blend right in. Because at this moment, we're different. We're different inside and different outside. In a Kehilah, Kedosha, as Rabbi Brous says, you come to this place with your heart wide open, trusting that you will be held with love by somebody in this sacred place. And it's also not easy for those walking to the right, walking with the crowd. They too do difficult work. They leave this stream of people to stop, to encounter and check in with someone who's walking to the left. This is one of the core pieces of being a Kehilah Kedosha, a holy community. A holy community continually reminds us to step out of our comfort zone, whether that's to display our internal brokenness or to break out of our schedule, our routine, to look out for those in a community. Being part of a Kehilah Kedosha, being well practiced in circling the metaphorical Beit HaMikdash, primes us to showing up for the funeral, to showing up to Shiva with food, to calling an acquaintance who we know might be having a tough go of it. We are primed to offer a shoulder and an ear to a fellow Temple Sholem member who we run into at the park. I hope that we are primed to show up and say, Amen. Amen, I see you. Amen, I'm here to celebrate you. Amen, I'm here to grieve with you. In order to strengthen this Kehilah, to help build those close connections, this year we are investing in a robust culture of micro-communities here at Temple Sholem. These self-led, flexible groups are an opportunity to help make our large community feel even more intimate, create deeper connections with other Temple Sholem members in life stages and within communities, within neighborhoods. By centering gatherings around Shabbat lunches, neighborhood walks, and potlucks, we're going to be grounded in Jewish time. The friendships we forge, the connections we make at Temple Sholem and in our own homes will be an ever-growing extension of this Kehilah Kedosha. And we're calling this initiative of micro-communities Sholem at Home. Honestly, I think it sounds a little better as Shalom at Home, but we've got to stick with the history of the German-speaking Jews in 1867 who only dreamt of filling this building with such a beautiful Kehilah Kedosha. Sholem at Home is for you. Whether you are a young family living in the West Loop, a solo retiree in East Lakeview, a couple in Bucktown Wicker Park, whether you're queer in Rogers Park, have a teen at, say, Lane Tech, or maybe you're new to Chicago, we are going to help you find community that feels like it is custom built for you. And I want to say thank you to my incredible partner in visioning, our manager of strategic engagement, Jude Kamler, who will, with me and our whole community, be rolling out Sholem at Home over this year of 5785. We, each one of us, are ultimately responsible for building this Kehilah Kedosha. In this time of polarization, of rising anti-Semitism, global instability, changing demographics, technological disruption, I could go on and on. It's our time to look to our foundations that fortify us, the holy communities that give us strength and scaffold us as we engage with the world. So may we both make our communities holier and find holiness in our communities. We'll do it by gathering and hosting as part of Sholem at Home. And we'll do it by reaching out, because every profound moment of strengthening community begins with stepping out of our comfort zone and saying, "Hi, how are you today?" And amen. Gemar Chatima Tova, may we be inscribed for goodness.